to the first episode of Ono Creates. Today, we are going to make an anime powerline diorama. Now, that's kind of a weird inspiration, but think of this. How many times have you watched an anime or read a manga, and they referenced a scene of frame with these cool-looking power lines going down the cityscape? Well, I thought that would be cool in my hand. So, here we are. The first thing I'm going to do is draw a sketch. I don't always do a sketch, but in this case, I wanted to get an idea of what I wanted to kind of do before I started cutting into foam. Now, I wanted to take this as a rectangular approach, as if I'm pulling it kind of like out of the earth itself, just because I think it would look cool on my desk. I don't know. Throw some lines in, and yeah, let's get to it, I guess. First things first, we're going to get some XPS foam, and we're going to create the base that all this will sit on. It's real simple. I'm just going to cut blocks, right? We just need to get some height on this diorama at the beginning here. And don't worry about cutting perfectly. It doesn't really matter in this particular case. Speaking of cutting though, make sure that you do it safely. I'm sitting here using a very small blade. I should be using one of my nice big knives, but I'm not. Definitely watch out how you do this. Now that I have all my blocks cut out and lined up, let's glue them. Now, I recommend this glue right here, Gorilla Construction Glue. I got this from another YouTuber, actually. It provides enough stickiness that you can keep working on your project, but it provides also a strong cure over time. And yeah, that's about what we want here. The next step in the process is to figure out what our pole is going to be. Now, you can find a variety of different pole-like objects around your household. I decided to raid the drawers of my children. Yes, that is a great resource for scrap junk that you don't need for anything but building anime powerline dioramas. I chose a pin because pins are great, I guess. And now that we've decided the pins are great, the next thing to do is to outline the general area that I would like to cut. Now, there's probably a million better methods than what I'm doing right here, especially when it comes to knife safety. Again, do this correctly. I'm just kind of winging this as I go, if you can't tell. But the method I did end up doing was cutting into multiple square, I guess, cubes, and then taking this out. Now, thinking about this afterwards, I naturally could have done this before I glued them together. I know what you're thinking, like, come on, why didn't you just glue them together after they were carved? But, you know, I got nothing for you. Now looking at our beautiful pin here, we're just gonna stab it. Stab it into the foam. Naturally, I guess that's where it's gonna go. Now we're gonna go ahead and get to our bits bin. Everyone has a bits bin, right? We're gonna grab some sandpaper out of here. What we're gonna do here is basically rough up the edges because it's gonna be very difficult to paint when it's nice and smooth. And yeah, enough of that. All right, next we're gonna take some black paint and we're gonna mix it with Mod Podge. Now, Mod Podge, fun story, is not Mod Podge. I always thought that for years of my life, and I learned something new recently getting into crafting. Now, the important thing isn't so much the color you prime with, but that you're doing it with Mod Podge. This provides a protective layer on your artwork so that you can apply other adhesives, paint, etc. without actually interacting with maybe the foam or something else underneath. If you didn't know, super glue and foam do not mix. Now, we're on to, I guess these are cross beams? I don't know. For this, we're gonna go ahead and grab some poster board. Now, this kind of poster board is stuff with the foam in the middle. I don't know what to call this, but this is something you can get at dollar stores or anything that sells general things. That doesn't make sense. You can't get this at a grocery store. But as you can see, they line up. Now, I want to determine the width. That is something you kind of have to play with. I ended up going through multiple variants of how I wanted this to look and how wide I wanted these to be. And eventually, I came across something I was happy with. And now, we prime it. as a side note here, you can go ahead and get one of these at your dollar store. These alligator clip plastic holder thingies are pretty useful sometimes. Now that we have most things primed, let's go ahead and just stab this pin right back into the hole that we created earlier. Just a little poke. Yep, okay. And now we're gonna retrofit it before we do something really scary. That's right, super glue scary. Don't use this method. I only poured this out into this plastic container because I could not get the lid off at the time. Don't do this. It's much more difficult, and you run into so many more problems. Alright, back to the Universal Bits box. Now that we have these glued on, we want to find something that kind of complements other aspects of a power pole. For instance, whatever these things are. Having bits can be so useful. This is why we have a bits box. Now, I saved these sprues from a Gundam kit that my daughter and I put together, and it's perfect for this type of application. Really for any application when it comes to little bits and pieces that you want to throw onto any kind of project. So I recommend, if you're a hobbyist in that fashion, just like this Warhammer 40k Tau sprue sheet, go ahead and save some of these, because they may help you out in the future. Like this piece. Now, just like we sanded to have a better surface to paint on earlier, we are going to sand these bits of plastic before we glue them on. This helps the super glue and whatever you're gluing it to actually adhere. Well, sometimes. Back in the bits box, we're looking for more things that go on a power line. This looks exactly like a transformer. So I combine this with another bit magic glue touch right there, and now we have something that resembles I guess a transformer. Yeah, I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. After another magical mystery glue touch, we now have something that it's starting to look like a power pole with a transformer on it, something for the wires to go off of, and I still don't know what the horn thing is at the top. I have no real clue. So now we're just adding a bunch of little bits and pieces and bits perhaps. Now the bottom piece there, I couldn't tell you exactly what that's for. Maybe some sort of strange switch, or maybe just scrap. We're gonna add a little bit of texture to the base itself before we get too involved here. There's a couple different methods here. This is a good point in time where you can do what we're about to do, which is add sand. Now first, I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of PVA glue. This is standard kind of glue that you get in grade school, but maybe a little stronger. And I'm just going to sprinkle some small, fine sand. You can use sand from your backyard. You can use it from the beach. You can use it from anywhere. Or you can go to your dollar or pound store and find some cheap sand to use. Rocks are also a great addition to texture, and don't worry about the colors or anything like this because I know we primed once, but we're going to paint again soon. And we go back to the bits box. Surprised, right? You're totally surprised that we're at the bits box. In the bits box, we find some holiday wire or some ornament hanging wire. I don't know what this is actually called. It's usually green, right? Because it's around Christmas time that you would use it. Something like this. I don't know. And now I am using super glue. Super glue is an optimal kind of glue for this situation. And once you get them all glued on, now you have some scraggly little power lines. Speaking of scraggly, let's go ahead and add some more bits from our bits box. I found some wire and I decided I'd curl them up into a little spring, apply it to some super glue, and good luck getting that off of your tweezers. Trust me, it's a problem. And I threw it down there with the other bits because why not? Why not have more bits next to more bits? So in the grand scheme of bits, we're gonna go ahead and add another coil down next to our sister spring. I think these are really representations of excess wire, maybe, perhaps. You can determine that on your own. And you know what? We're back into the bits. Okay, all right, I'm gonna stop saying that because it's gonna get too catchy / too annoying. But we did acquire from the special box a special fence. Yes, special fence in the sense that I stole this also from my children. Now, if you have children, they're a great resource for these types of little plastic nothings that you end up usually throwing away anyways. In this case, will be used as a easy way to create a fence. Now, I could have created one from scratch, but if I have the fence, I might as well use the fence, you know? So let's add some more bits. I think this came from a Warhammer 40k model, a Tau gun of some sort, and also this as well. Thank you, Tau. All we're doing here is adding any remaining bits that I found in the box into varying parts of the diorama. Now this is cool because you kind of just freestyle this as you go. I was using reference photos from actual power lines, mostly from actual shots of anime. Back to our old friend Mod Podge. Again, it's so hard to not say Mod Pod. Wait, no, that's not how it goes either. Oh, crap. Either way, we're going to use the same method where we put in a primer base color acrylic paint with the Mod Podge, and then we're going to coat the whole thing. Now, I know we did this once, but this is only extra protection for some of the things we've already done. And this is really going to bring everything together into one inclusive piece that we can then take to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with gray, black, and white. You can start with green if the ground's going to be green, but I like to start with what's underneath the grass. So I use kind of a darker medium gray and then mix in white to make a lighter gray and coat that over the top. Now we're going to go ahead and grab this tan color that I already owned along with this brown here so that we can add some earthy kind of tones into the rock underscape. Now we're going to go ahead and add some green and some yellow because those are kind of some natural colors that you would find in the grass. I'm using a method here where I dip the brush into the green, the yellow, and then into the black. This adds a variety of color to the brush's quote-unquote palette. That way, when I'm pressing down onto the piece, I'm getting a little bit of each color more independently instead of blended together, which is really useful for covering a lot of area in one short amount of time. Now we're going to go ahead and reuse some of the tan that we have wet in the palette over there. We're going to throw this on top of the brown that we had painted already, just to add a little bit of highlight color to it. We're going to go ahead and work on the pole. Now I use a couple different methods by accident. What I'm doing here is I'm adding the rust color because in the end I want this to look a little bit more worn down and rustic. So I'm adding orange, red, and use a little bit of brown. This is a method in which you apply the rust color first and then go back afterwards with your metal that did not get rusted. So that's exactly what we're going to do here, but oddly enough, I end up mixing methods, I guess, going between this and just doing it in the reverse. You know, I can't be consistent at all. Here we are, not being consistent. Now we're gonna paint the cross beams, the wood, and I guess the little metal dot thingies. You know, where the wires are held. I don't know. I'm not an electrician. And of course the horn. Oddly enough, we painted over it and primed it in black, and we are repainting it the same color it originally was, red. Seems a bit backwards, you know, consistent, right? Alright, now that we have something a little bit more tangible at this point, we'll add in just a few more details, and then we're going to focus over here on the rust. Now, the rust, I'm using a method that emulates pitting. I'm using orange, red, and I'm making little dots into segments that are washed away. In my opinion, I think this provides something a little bit more detailed without actually having to feel like you're adding a lot of meticulous detail. Now's a good time in the video to point out all the music that has been provided for this video has been provided by Johnny Bailey on Spotify. Look at the link down in the description if you want to check out their music. They are awesome. Now, using this blue, I wanted to provide a little bit more of, I guess, a contrast in comparison to some of the colors we have been using. So I wanted to paint some bits on here with something that popped a little bit more, similar to how the red pops at the top. So when I was a younger Ono, I actually used to be a bit of a graffiti artist. I won't say I did it necessarily illegally or legally, but I did definitely do a lot of pieces on canvas. I did some pieces on free walls, things like that. So I decided to add that element of not just my past, but a lot of things that you see, or I guess you would probably see on an old metal pole. So I got this idea from one of my Twitch followers, and if you don't know, I do stream on Twitch. That link is provided as well in the description if you ever want to come hang out and watch me record these live. Now this idea was to add a little note, kind of like a garage sale sign or some kind of ad, a missing animal, something like that. Now we're going to do a wash. If you're familiar with other craft channels, a wash usually is a very big element in adding grittiness, dirtiness, depth to your pieces. What this does is it gets down into the cracks and grooves that are really impossible or difficult to paint. This creates contrast in the entire piece itself, and in this particular case is going to make it look grimy and old. You can use acrylic washes, but I'm using an oil-based wash with mineral spirits. I feel like this gives it an extra grimy texture that I really want. Keep in mind though, this can strip paint a little bit, so I'm going to go back and add in what it stripped away. We're going to add some realistic foliage to go with our flocking and such. I used a combination of glycerin and water to preserve these plants. These were out in my backyard. All I did was take some snippings of grass, random parts of a bush here, another random dying part of a bush, and we're going to add it in with all the fake stuff. And now we flock. We're going to go ahead and cover the entire piece in PVA glue. When I say entire piece, only the bits that you want to have grass. I made my own flocking out of sawdust and acrylic paint, but I'm going to run this through a strainer over our PVA, keeping the big chunks out and the little ones to emulate grass. Go ahead and add a few extra little dots of PVA in some areas that we want to add something a little bit thicker. And now we're going to flock again. To add another touch of realism, we're going to add in our fake plants. That's right, we're going to use Army Painter tufts. That's what they're called, tufts, right? Tufts. They're tough. I don't know. Tufts. Tufts. I can't even say it. Tufts. Yeah, we're going to add those everywhere. And then we're going to add in some of the more organic materials that we've collected and preserved with glycerin. Now you may notice that I finally got the cap to come off of my super glue, and we can use this how we're intended to use it. Now hadn't had any issues using super glue with these preserved plants, but I don't know if it's the best glue for this, but I do know it provides that instant hold that I need for some of the impossible positions that I'm putting these in. So here we are, we just need to cut a few more up and add them as we go, and we're trying to build a little bit more of a realistic looking plant out of big ones. So in this instance, we can cut up some of the bigger plants and glue them together to recreate something a little bit more scalable to this size. It's looking nice. So all we're gonna do is keep snipping away and we're gonna keep gluing. Now we're going to shift our focus over to those scraps of paper that we prepared earlier with this yellow. We're going to paint it across the top to give a weathering feel to it. We'll go ahead and add some brown as well. dirty, you know, it's dirty out there. We're gonna add some little details to the paper itself with some extra color. Because after all, this is, you know, it's not a black and white printed photo. We can all afford color ink cartridges, right? That's normal, right? Yeah. And now, we snip away. In this case, cut. Now I'm going to dip this into a glue. I'm pretty sure I used super glue? Something like that. I'm not sure, but I pasted it and then put it onto the pole itself. And once it's on there, I'm going to use this opportunity while the glue is drying to add an angle on the bottom of the paper to make it look like it's peeled up a little bit. This will add that dimension that'll make it look kind of nice. Now for the second sheet. And we'll pretend that I got that in the right spot the first try. Yeah, totally did. Again, a Twitch user then said, you should add a pipe. You know, I couldn't disagree. But using a giant roll, paper towel roll, would not work, so I cut a small snippet of it and recreated a smaller version of itself. Now we're going to paint it, and to paint it I'm going to go ahead and put the rust color in first, including the pitting, and then afterwards I'm going to take a small snippet of a sponge. Yes, that's right, a sponge is perfect for this. You dip it into gray paint, and just sponge right over top of the rust, and look what you get. You get a rusty pipe. Now it's time to get dangerous once again with our super glue, without gluing our fingers to the pipe or our other fingers. We're going to attach it to the diorama. And yeah, let's just add some foliage. Yeah, real fast, just like that. And now we dry brush all of our mistakes. I mean the sides. We just dry brush the sides. I should have done this before I put the pipe in, but you know, it's okay. It came out all right. And speaking of how it came out, I guess this is the end, right? Are we done with this video? We finally done? Well, here, I'll just shut up. Here's some glamour shots of our anime Powerline diorama. Now, I do want to thank everybody for taking time to check this video out, and thank you to all my Twitch subscribers listed here on this board. If you want to come hang out with me sometime, feel free, and I'll see you in the next video.